Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 460. My opponent kicked off with e4 and I replied e6, played the French defense, which I haven't played for a while, but often a fun way to play, especially when white goes for the main line like this with knight c3. Now after knight c3 I can play either bishop to b4, the Winawer, or knight to f6, the classical variation. But well, I enjoy the Winawer the most, so I play this way. e5 is the main move. As white, I've been experimenting with this interesting alternative a3. You see, it's the fifth choice here. Leads to some interesting play, but e5 is the main move. Now I go c5, and then a3, kicking the bishop, asking it what it plans to do. And the normal move is just to take here. Black gives up the bishop pair in exchange for some pawn damage here on the queen side. And now knight e7 is the main move, which allows the poison pawn variation, which is very interesting and complicated. Queen c7 is a reasonable alternative as well. The queen is putting pressure on the c-file and also defending along the 7th rank. So if the queen comes to g4, you can play f5 and defend that way. So that's the idea. Queen g4 is often played anyway, or knight to f3. This move a4 is really a rare move here. And then, well, knight e7 would transpose back into somewhat of a common line. But well, I went ahead and took the pawn here. It looks like knight e7 might have been best. But, well, we're basically out of the opening book, so let's take a look at this. I grab the pawn, and we get a typical kind of position. He should just take back here. Instead, he plays knight f3, and this is a very interesting pawn sacrifice. I can grab another pawn here and stay a pawn up, but he has a lot of compensation. Might be most accurate to play bishop a3 first, but he throws in bishop to b5 check. And okay, so if I played bishop d7, that would be one way to refute this sacrifice. But I played knight c6, and he then gets in bishop a3, and with his active bishops, oh, cancel, he didn't play it. He castled first. I played knight e7, and then he played bishop a3. And I just want to say, with his active bishops, he has some compensation for the sacrificed pawn, so pretty interesting position. I go ahead and castle here, and he goes bishop to d6, and asking my queen where it wants to go. I decided to put the queen on d8. It looks like I could have put it on d7 as well, but I wasn't sure about that. It does walk right into another pin. But, well, queen d8 is okay. Knight to d4. So knight d4, I guess, he is the first place where he really lets his advantage slip. He's been maintaining some kind of compensation for the pawn, but after knight d4, I'm able to trade off some pieces, which I want to do. I mean, I have kind of a cramped position. I have trouble deciding what to do with this bishop, figuring out how to develop it, I mean. It's not even getting out of the box very easily. But with the knight here on d4, I can trade off the knight and put my bishop to d7 and get into the game this way. And so now his compensation has diminished somewhat. Let's see, he went ahead and took on c3, getting one of his pawns back. But I still stay a pawn up, and I get to trade off my problem piece, the light-squared bishop. So this is a good position for black. Black is basically just a pawn up at this point. But, well, it's interesting that white did have compensation for the sacrifice for a while. He just didn't quite play the most accurate moves, so he let me get some kind of edge. And now if I can just hold on, I'll be able to go into an endgame a pawn up. So, well, he tries for activity. Well, let's see. No, it's my turn. I go queen d7. I want to get my queen off the back rank. He goes queen to a3, targeting my knight. I defend the knight and unpen at the same time. And now he goes g4. I think g4 is asking for trouble. He's kind of weakening the king's side. What does the engine suggest? Oh, the engine suggests just trading out. If white doesn't do something active, though, he just remains a pawn down. So I guess it's interesting that it's understandable that he wants to try and stir up trouble. Let's see. I went knight to c8, wanted to chase that bishop away. And now he goes c4. And here I did not play the best moves here. It's best for me just to go ahead and take that pawn immediately. I was a little worried about opening up the d-file onto my queen here, but look at this. After I take, if he tries to take advantage of this d-file and put some pressure on my queen, I can grab another pawn this way. And this is just good for me. And this knight is not, I mean, the bishop on d6 looks imposing, but it's not really hitting anything at the moment. So this would be fine for me. So that's the way I should have played it. Instead, I played a bit more cautiously. I traded the bishop off, and he took with the queen. And I decided to take the queens off and go for this endgame with an extra pawn. He takes back, and I take here. But it's not as good as the other position. My pawns are a little bit scattered now. He has pressure pressure on the yeah, sorry about that. Pressure on the a pawn here, and then this pawn is loose, so he can scoop up some pawns here. And he starts with rook a4, which is a good move. It's hitting this pawn and maintaining pressure on the a pawn. I go after his d pawn. He defends with rook d1, and then I play rook d7 to stop it from advancing and planning to double. So now he can just grab one of my pawns, but I will at least get a pawn back. Although it's important that I can't take right away. If I take, he takes, I take, and then rook comes down here and it's checkmate. I have a weak back rank, so I have to watch out for that trick. So that's why I play king f8 here. So it's no longer bait, and I really am threatening to take the pawn. I was thinking he might try and double and defend the pawn this way, but I can gradually push my pawns forward and come over and win this guy. So instead he went for rook c7, which is an approved choice. I grabbed this pawn, but then he grabs one of my pawns. Cancel that. He didn't take immediately. What did he play? Oh, he traded first. And then he took on b7. So I remain a pawn up, but he has pretty good trying chances after this move, rook b6. Basically what he should do here is he should take on a7 and allow me to take this pawn. And then with 4 pawns against 3 pawns all on one side of the board, that's a theoretical draw. I mean, black can still push and try, and I certainly would try to win, but if white plays the best moves, then he can hold a draw there. But what he played instead is a losing move. He just traded rooks here. And this is an easy win. See, the evaluation immediately shifts from being -1 to -3. So it's pretty straightforward. I just bring my kings and my pawns gradually forward. It's important to not let his king penetrate. He does have one advanced pawn. That's his trump in this position. But notice that I'm covering all of these squares so his king can't get through. The one way he might get counterplay and win this game is to get his king over here on c6, take my pawn and push his pawn through, which eventually he does, but by that time my pawns have advanced far enough and I have a passed pawn over here, so I win that way. Anyway, king d6, keeping his king out. Let's just go forward a few more moves because there's not a whole lot going on. I think it's pretty straightforward to win this, and you see the evaluation is already starting to climb here. This looks a bit tricky at this point. It looks like he's kind of holding everything off, but I always, since I have this extra pawn, I always have something to play with, so I can send this pawn forward. His king has to go chase it to stop it from queening, and then I can mop up these other pawns and win that way, and that's the plan. So I push forward. His king comes over to attack my pawn. I push forward one more. He takes it, and now I get my king to this square. You have to, of course, calculate the sequence out correctly because it's important that he can't get back and defend the pawn. I'm covering all of these squares. So there's nothing much he can do. He went to d3, going for the counterplay, but now I'm faster. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 moves for him to queen that pawn, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves for me to queen my pawn. So even though he goes first, I'm going to cancel that. He went to d4. Even though he goes first, I'm going to I'm still going to queen first. And right here, he gets his pawn all the way to the 7th rank. But even if there weren't any pawns on the other side of the board, this would still be a win for black because you check his king, drive it in front of the pawn, and then bring your king over. And as your king moves closer step by step, eventually you get to some square where you start to restrict his king, and you can win this pawn. Just watch out for stalemate tricks, and you'll be fine. But when you have extra pawns, then there's an even easier way to win, which I did. Queen f7 check, king moves anywhere, and then you just take the pawn, and then you grab the pawn over here, and he can't get close enough to stop this pawn from becoming a queen. So that was the simplest win. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.